All right, welcome to today's call on time self-management. I trust that you're ready to take some amazing notes, and that way that you're able to implement the items from today's call. Now, there's a few housekeeping items that we're going to cover real quick at the beginning of the call. I am recording this call, so as long as the cloud and everything works, we will have this as a recording so that we're able to send it out if anybody would like a copy of this. Today, the agents on the call are either MAPS clients in my schedule. MAPS clients have been invited by their coach and the agents in the Plano Bowl that I currently have the privilege of leading. Now, right now, everyone on the call is muted. You have the ability to unmute yourself if there's a point in the conversation that you'd like to ask a question or a comment, or even share an aha. And you can actually type that into the chat box as well. Either one is fine. Now, just in case someone doesn't know who I am, I'm Olivia Roberts, a MAPS one-on-one coach and a MAPS Bold coach. So again, welcome to today's call, and let's just jump in with both feet. Now, we know the topic of today's call, and Diana introduces this concept in Bold, and of course, Gary in the One Thing, and even if we go back as far as the MREA. And one of the things in Bold, and Diana requests that we look at time management a little bit differently, right? There's that Bold law that states, change the way you look at things, and the things you look at change. Gary Keller asked the question in the One Thing that if we all have the same hours in a day, why do some of us get more done than others? Well, today we're going to actually examine this, and my intent is for you to walk away with action items that you can actually put into place today in order to begin experiencing results immediately. Now, so we're going to start off the call with a bit of a brain teaser because we want the Bold law, right? Change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. Some of you may know this. A man and his son had a terrible car accident and were rushed to the hospital. Now, the man died on the way and the son was still barely alive. Now, when they arrived, an old gray-headed surgeon was called in to operate. And upon seeing the young boy, the surgeon said, I can't operate. This is my son. How is that possible? Who knows the answer to that one?
Grandson?
That's a good guess. That's a good guess. So what it is, though, and this is the interesting thing, and I'll tell you in a minute why we actually start the call off with a brain teaser like this. It's actually the mom. See, our brain heard an old gray surgeon, and we immediately went to, it must be a gentleman, right? And yet, when we change the way we look at things, it becomes very apparent. Well, so we started the call off this because, like we learn in Bold, our brain moves so fast, it deletes from our awareness certain things, and we unwittingly block ourselves from succeeding at goals and dreams because of the logical yet faulty assumptions that we make. Wouldn't it be obvious, we would think that it would be obvious that we're falling into this trap. And yet with these faulty assumptions around, and we're going to be talking today primarily about time management, and yet not when they're our own faulty assumptions. So it's much easier to spot other people. So if you ever watch someone, right, they get frustrated trying to push open that door, and it needs to be pulled. All it takes is one inaccurate belief to stop a person from getting through that doorway. And once we realize that error, the person can easily push the door open. Assumptions are always based on our best logic. And in turn, that logic is based on a combination of personal experience and the information available. So faulty logic inherently produces incorrect assumptions. You see, and we learn from, we learn that, our brain makes a decision so quickly, and it's constantly showing us our habitual thinking. We automatically make decisions based on our patterns of thinking. And each one of us has thinking patterns. So number one today is this is something that you can implement. And I want you to write this down. Stop thinking like a realtor. Start thinking like the business person. Think big, think future, and do the activities the business requires in order for you to be successful. So number one, start thinking like a business person. Next thing I'm going to ask you to write down, manage yourself, not your time. Now, when we think about that, we have to be willing to look at things a little differently, and that's why we started out with that brain teaser. If everyone has the same hours a day, why do some people seem to get so much more done than others? They achieve more, they earn more, they have more. Well, achievers operate differently. They plan their work and then they work their plan. So I'm going to say that again because I think sometimes we get hung up. We have this great plan and then we don't work on that plan. And what we do know is that planning it is a lot easier than actually executing the plan. So in the MREA, page 289, right, there's a quote. No horse gets anywhere until he is harnessed. No steam or gas ever drives anything until it is confined. No Niagara is ever turned into light and power until it is tunneled. No life ever grows until it is focused, dedicated, and disciplined. And that quote's by Harry Emerson. So now Gary tells us agents succeed through the power of narrowing their focus. So you see, life doesn't just happen to us, right? Our business success or our business failure doesn't just happen to us. It's all about choices. Choices about what you focus on and how you maintain that focus. The future of your real estate business depends directly on your ability to focus in its proper direction. The bigger you desire your business to be, the narrower your focus will need to be on what matters. Gary gives us 5 simple steps that can lead to great focus and open up a world of possibilities in your business and in your life. So number 1, create a personal plan and make processes your focus. Number 2, time block to get your focus. Number 3, get accountability to keep your focus. Number 4, make sure your environment supports your focus. And number 5, keep your energy up to maintain your focus. Now, this is in the MREA pages 292 to 294. I'm giving you those page numbers because you want to cover all of these, and yet for today's purpose, we're only going to be covering step 2. So it's going to be instrumental that you go back and read these pages 292 to 294. I'm sorry, 290 to 294. Okay, so we're going to start with time blocking. One of the most interesting things around time blocking is not only do we have to time block, right, we then have to follow that time block. One of the things, so that means we also have to have time in our calendar to actually time block. To make our business success happen, it's focusing on making sure the key things get done. Time blocking helps you do this. Think of it this way. If everyone has the same amount of time, then success at a high level isn't about how much time you have, rather it's about how you use that time. Now, technology, right, it's supposed to give us more time, and yet does it? One of the things that you can do immediately, starting today, to get more time back is turn all of the alert notifications off of your phone. Someone is always working to get your attention, right? You got 50,000 emails coming at you. Your phone, you've got missed calls, you've got text messages. You have the ability to turn all of those alerts off. at least put them on the second, third, fourth page of your phone. So like if it's showing you that every time you get a new email, that notification comes up, put that on the second page so it's not the thing staring at you. So that's number one. It's very simple and yet it's powerful. Turn off all your notifications on your phone. Remember, email, text message, all of those are for your convenience, not for other people's convenience to you. So we want to utilize those, not let it use us. So we call it time management. Really, it's self-management. It's about prioritizing and managing activities. It's about being disciplined enough to follow a schedule. See, we are living in a world that demands more and more of us. So, think Pinterest and Facebook. Today we must be the ultimate follower, the ultimate mother, the ultimate friend, helper, spiritual person. That list goes on and on. So when you think about this, you can become stressed, especially if your standards are high. So what we want to do is, that when we get stressed by that, we become overwhelmed. And when we say that we're overwhelmed, there are certain chemicals that are released in our brain, and the actual creative side of our brain shuts down, which means you shut down energetically. You're stopped dead in your tracks. And then this is when we focus on problems rather than the solution. So we can't even see the solution because we have just shut down. So all real estate agents have a choice. They can be in business or busyness. That's our choice, business or busyness. Most of us are in busyness. How come? Well, the time is not focused on what really needs to be done to drive the business at a big level, right? We're not clear about the model, so we're not clear about the activities and priorities on which we should focus our time. Now, millionaire real estate agents, they are just the opposite. They don't have a to-do list. They have a success list. Now, through time blocking, they make sure that they have the things they have to get done first. They know what has to happen at the beginning of the year, the month, the week, and the day. They open their calendar and they block these off. So first off, start thinking about your calendar. Have you blocked off your entire year? And then at the beginning of the month, you block off your month, and then your week, and then your day. Every day you should be looking at this. Everything else on your to-do list gets scheduled after and around that success list. Now, Gary shares with us when we're giving areas of importance, we have to prioritize. Now, what we typically tend to do is we prioritize only when deadlines and problems hit us, and then we start reacting. So let's face it, the stuff that matters most isn't always the most fun. So this leads people to work off to-do lists so that we basically think of it, when we work off a to-do list, we're acting like children picking at their food, right? They start with their favorite and they save the veggies for last. So by the time they get to the veggies, think of the task that would have been easier or more effective if done earlier, right? It's cold, it's hard, and heck, they may be full, which is in our example would be worn out, and then we have no more energy for more. High achievers are different. High achievers are sensible enough to prioritize activities according to their ability to make the business grow. And for them, time blocking their calendars to ensure they have time to do them. So if we look real quick at what is an example of what our calendar should look like. Now, the one on the left, you'll recognize it from the MREA. The one on the right, it's actually some things that I took from, again, the MREA, and we said, okay, how would Gary Keller's calendar look? So every morning before 11, he's got his spiritual energy, his physical energy, emotional energy, and his business energy. And that business energy comes from lead generation and lead follow-up. So one of the things I went ahead and added on here was, how do you block your afternoon? Because Gary Keller says, block until noon. You have discipline until noon. So all of that stuff gets done. Then you take your lunch, maybe your personal task, and then you start looking at what needs to happen in the afternoon. Many times what occurs is we don't have things on our calendar. And what we know from the bold law, right? If it's not on our calendar, it doesn't exist. So do you have time in your calendar that would actually do maybe your success list items, maybe your admin tasks? One of the things, if you look here, everything's broken into 90-minute segments. So if you've lead generated that morning and you have an appointment, you've got it blocked off and you go. No appointment, now you decide that's the time that lead generate and lead follow-up. If you are where you need to be for the week for lead gen, then you start working on whatever project is most important. And you'd want to have a list of what projects you'd like to complete that week and then have them in the order of importance. That way, if you have this on your calendar every single day, that project might not happen until Thursday, and yet it's going to happen because you've got your lead generation and your appointments taken care of. Now, we know that until your goals consistently hit your calendar, you won't consistently hit your goals, right? The truth makes your calendar a power tool, because some of us look at doing a calendar as a to-do list task instead of an actual tool to run your business. Just like we say budget your money, you're also budgeting your time. You're going to your calendar and you're setting aside enough time in advance to accomplish the activities that are going to then drive your business and build your business to its highest potential. So you're going to be holding yourself accountable for focusing your energy where you've budgeted for as long as you have budgeted. Now, this is the thing that we really have to grow our muscles in, and that execution of this. So it's easy to create this calendar, and then you go, okay, well, if my goal is to lead generate, and you set aside time in the AM to make, let's say, 10 prospecting calls to your allied resources, you have to hold yourself accountable to making all the 10 calls, even if the first 9 were spectacular, and yet they ran long, and you have to bump other items from your schedule. Time blocking is for your 20%. And is a skill that must be learned, practiced, and turned into a key productivity habit. It will become, over time, one of the most important business habits you will ever acquire. Now, and again, it's in that execution. Now, I'm going to pause real quick before I go into a little bit more around the execution. I'd love to hear from those of you guys that are on the call. Feel free, you can unmute yourself. Or type in the comment box, the chat box. What is something that maybe it's an aha, it's a question or a comment about what we shared so far? I definitely want this to be participatory. Maybe even some things that work well for you. So I'd love to hear from you guys.
I like that last part. Can you hear me fine?
Yes, Anthony, go ahead.
Yeah, that last part where you said time blocking is the 20%. It must be learned. And it's a habit. Can you repeat that?
Oh goodness, let's see. What did I say? Okay, so time blocking is for your 20% and is a skill that must be learned, practiced, and turned into a key productivity habit. Yeah, because agents who never acquire time blocking business habits end up with time wasting busyness habits and fall short of their potential. Yeah. And then Angela, Angela shared, you know, in the group text, her aha is that your calendar is a power tool and not just a place for a to-do list. Yes. If we're not careful, our calendar becomes either an appointment. So we only put our appointments in there, and it's typically only the appointments for the client. So we forget to put things like, oh, I'm supposed to have lead generation or lead follow-up. And absolutely a success list versus a to-do list. Now you'll notice in my example, we have the success list and then the never do again list. Now that's actually, if you look at the MREA, that says it's a to-do list. The reason I went with this never do again is as I started building my team, I discovered there were things that I didn't like that was happening. So for instance, if a client called and they were upset because something didn't happen, I wanted to make sure that never happened again. So it would go on my never do again. And that way I knew to create a system or something around that so that that particular issue wouldn't come up for a future client. And then Debbie, yeah, put your phone away when time blocking. Absolutely. I think the phone is for our pleasure, not necessarily for everyone else. That is for our, you know, we get to decide when we answer that and when we don't answer it. Something, especially for anybody that has admin, you actually, if they're answering your phone, you time block an hour a day at probably a minimum that nobody's answering a phone. Like, and you could pick a time where not a lot of phone calls are coming in, maybe 1 to 2 or 11 to 12, and go ahead and have that conversation, or let them, you know, let all the phones go to voicemail for that hour time block. That way there's uninterrupted space to work on whatever project you or your admin would like to work on. We have another question. Adam said, is that what the MAPS planner looks like? It's actually not. This is an old one that we used to utilize, and I used it because it was in the MREA. This is how I used to run when I ran my business. This is what I utilized. The MAPS planner, it's actually really cool. So if everybody, like if you go to Get Maps Now, you should be able to find the MAPS planner on there and kind of check that out. If you can't, let me know and I'll send you a video recording of my MAPS planner. I like it a whole lot, and you can put all of this on there as well. Any other questions or anything that we want to cover before we move to the next piece? All right, so we're going to go ahead and move on now. So again, so we know that, you know, time blocking up front is easy. The key is to go to your calendar and actually do it. So that real challenge is to honor the system by protecting the time you have set aside and utilizing it with absolute focus in the face of the inevitable barrage of false priorities and interruptions during the day. So really protecting your time. So you have to remind yourself that nothing, and that is nothing, underline it, circle it, is more important to your business than your focus on lead generation. And it's the lead generation for listings and the pursuit of leverage through talent. That is everybody's goal. Now, let's say that you're, if you're a buyer's agent exclusively on a team, well, your rainmaker's job is to go get those listings, right? And lots of them, so that you can focus on getting more buyer listings signed. So there's just somebody on the team that their main topic, and of course, if you're an individual agent, your job is lead generation for listings and the pursuit of leverage through talent. Now, time blocking, it's a process or system to help you maintain your focus. It opens the door to focused activities. And of course, we know that lead generation is our one thing. So what would be at the top of your list of priorities every single day? Now, I know that we got you on mute, so I also know that everybody's saying with me right now, lead generation. So now, so I'd like to introduce you to, and I say introduce, we're going to bring it up on today's call, and yet we talk about this in bold, right? Diana tells us, ask the question, what actually is time? So you guys might want to write this down. Diana says that time is first a feeling and then secondly, a tracking device. So it's a feeling first and a tracking device second. If you choose to manage your time, you must choose to manage your feelings. So again, if you choose to manage your time, you must choose to manage your feelings. Just think about it. Have you ever been at a time like you've had so much fun and wow, time disappeared and you're like, wow, it's already time to leave, or it's already time to do whatever. And then other times, maybe you're stressed, you're bored, and those hands on the clock, it's like they're stuck in the same place forever. Well, that's because of what you're feeling, right? So in one case, you were joyful and enjoying, and the other one, you were unhappy, upset, and that causes that time to move like molasses. Now, so we want to be cognizant of what we are feeling. And remember that when we change our physiology, right, like our movement, we can actually change our emotions. Because interesting enough, a lot of us, when we say something like, oh, that's hard, what we really mean is that's boring or that's not fun. Because if you think about it, lead generation is not hard. I mean, really, when you think about it, going through cancer, that's hard. Having I personally have not had a baby, and imagine having a baby is hard, right? Like those are some things that are hard. Picking up a phone and having a conversation is not really hard. It just could be not fun, maybe. It could be boring. And so as adults, we tend to make that hard, and that gives us in our mind, gives us a reason not to do it. Because this is, many times people think that tension is bad, and yet growth stops when you lose the tension. So the tension between where you are and where you could be, that is where growth happens. Only a mediocre person is always at their best. Only a mediocre person is always at their best. So we want to look at when we're creating that time blocking schedule. For any task to be a priority, it must have more importance than something else. And importance comes from your values, your goals, and your commitments, right? So think about the iceberg from Bold that, right, we get out of the MREA. Actually draw a triangle. We're going to pretend like that's our iceberg, right? So draw a triangle and draw 3 lines so that it's got 3 parts to the triangle. And you're going to write purpose, priority, and productivity. And that's going to come from the bottom up. Start with, so purpose at the very bottom, the bottom third, and then priority, and the top third is productivity. Now, if you imagine, right, if we talk about the iceberg and from the MREA and we drew a line, what we would know about an iceberg is some of it doesn't show above the water. So someone just asked me to repeat this. So the 3 P's, purpose, and that's going to be the bottom of your triangle, and then priority is the second, and then productivity. That's your 3 parts of your iceberg. Now, when we think about an iceberg, only so much of it shows above the water. So what Gary tells us, right, what you see is determined by what you don't see. So the productivity you see is just the tip of what you don't see. It's the way you think, your purpose, setting priorities, and these items determine your production that shows up. So you've got to design your day around achieving your primary goals and the 5 tasks of being a bold realtor. Yeah, somebody texted that the PowerPoint didn't change. It did not. I didn't have all of this in the PowerPoint. I think I may, hold on. I'm not sure if you guys are still seeing this at all. Okay, Raquel said she can still see that. Okay. Yeah, and so guys, yeah, the rest of this we really don't have a PowerPoint for, and yet, okay, you can still see that. You can ignore my back screen. I've got way too much on my computer. So interesting enough, and this is, if we go back to our actual calendar, this is what I'd like you guys to think about. Many of my MAPS coaching clients, many of my the people that I lead in Bold, it's always interesting when we talk about lead generation. And something that typically comes up is, well, I don't have time for it. Or, you know what? And they'll go through like 3 or 4 days, well, I have this to do and that to do and that to do. And so I'll lead generate, and they name a day like 3 hours, 3 days in ahead. What that tells me is they're not actually maintaining their entire week. So for instance, whenever you're time blocking on Sunday, right? And Gary Keller does this. On Sunday, you create your plan for the entire week. Now, you might not know exactly what appointment you're going to go on Thursday, and yet you have a goal for an appointment. And if you break it down the way this looks like, excuse me, you know, if you don't have an appointment, you already have something to fill in there. And then what you want to do is you want to make sure lead generation is first and that you're erasing or replacing. So let's say that you have a meeting at your office that occurs at 8 a.m. on, and we're going to pretend like this is our day schedule for Tuesday. And we go, okay, well, you know, I can't change that. The meeting's at 8. So now I'm going to put, where instead of lead generation, I'm going to put team meeting, and I'm going to move, and one of these appointments are going to become the time for lead generation. So again, it's why it's so important that not only do we have it on our schedule, that we're making those adjustments every week. Because what tends to happen is somebody creates a, we create what we would call a perfect schedule, and then we never look at it again. This is something that should be in front of you every day, and every day it should have another day, right? So this isn't the same for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, based on what I have going on. So at the end of the day, let's just imagine here that we say, okay, at the end of the day, it's not letting me make adjustments here. But let's say at the end of the day, this is Tuesday. At the end of the day, I finish my day and I go, okay, based on what happened today, what adjustments do I need to make to Wednesday? Now I pull Wednesday up. I might have my basic on there, and then I make my adjustments based on what is happening on Wednesday. So I'm going to stop right here real quick. What questions do you have around just actually keeping it on your schedule and utilizing and looking at it every single day to make adjustments to it? Somebody say something or type something. I'm really kind of nervous that I lost everybody. Okay, thank you, Adam. Okay. Okay, so then I want to look at now, and you can notice in the calendaring, and I kind of put the notes off to the side around, the notes from and how our morning should be scheduled. So these are some things that I'm going to ask that you write down. How do you calendar? So number one, and this is not something new that you've heard, and yet we want to make sure that we're following this. So number one, You're going to put in your calendar events you plan on attending. And we start with events rather than vacations because we can't change events, and yet we can schedule vacations around them. Number 2, vacations. Make certain you take vacations. Buy the tickets well in advance, right? We want to have a business that funds the perfect life, so that means vacations. Then number 3, your family outings. So maybe it's soccer or football games, school functions, whatever that is. Date nights and exercise time. Then the 5 pieces of your job description. I think everybody here knows the 5 pieces of your job description. Just in case, I'm going to go ahead and say them. Lead generation, lead follow-up, going on appointments, negotiating contracts, and role play. You also want to include thinking time, reading time, learning and growth time. I recently heard Lance Loken. Most of you guys know him, heard of him, seen him on panels. He spends 2 hours a day just thinking about what's next in his business. Now, you might not have 2 hours a day, and yet maybe there's a 15-minute window, right? John Maxwell has an actual thinking chair that he sits in every day. Diana does this as well. So, because how often do we not slow down and think about what do we actually desire to have happen? Okay. All right, so I'd like to hear from you guys. What are some of the things that you're currently doing that works really well to help you stay on schedule? And maybe one thing that from today's call you're going to start doing now. Okay, we have one comment here, right? Adam says, when you're saying thinking time, are you meaning meditation? It could mean meditation, because meditation, right? It's thinking about being focused on one thing, and when your brain goes away, you're coming back to it. And yes, it could actually look at like writing out your organizational charts for the long term of your business. So the answer to both of those questions really is yes. Angela, no, this is awesome. So your husband and you have a weekly meeting to go over the family goals and think strategically about the next week or so. Yeah, so when we find something that's useful in one area of our life, bringing it to that other area of our life. So Angela, one of the things that, think of this as when you and I have our one-on-one coaching calls, right? That is that strategic meeting. And yet, right, so we might be focused on a particular project or growth thing in your business, and yet also going, okay, this is what I need to do strategically to move forward. Debbie, getting up early is my solution now. Well, absolutely, because it's funny, lots of times we're more committed to sleep than we are committed to our success, right? We don't even realize that, yet we're way more committed to sleep than we are success. One of the things that you guys want to protect yourself from, like burnout. Usually if we burn out, it's not because we're not doing enough, because we're probably, most of us are all high achievers. The burnout comes from we're always flexing that hard muscle and we're not ever taking that downtime. And we're also, we may not be getting enough sleep. So making sure not only are you getting up earlier, are you going to bed early enough so that you are able to get up early. Mr. Colbert, start putting appointments on your calendar, even if you don't have any at the time, because otherwise you're planning on it, and then you're life is already in there. So and the thing is, the great part is when your clients do, when your clients, or you do have an appointment, your clients 99% of the time will meet whenever you tell them to. And so if you've already got it in your calendar and you have your personal time, it's really easy to say, hey, yeah, let's do this at this time. Okay, perfect. Okay, perfect. Is there one of the things I will share, this is pretty much what I have created to cover with you guys today. And yet I know that with you guys being on this call, you came on here hoping to walk away with something in particular. So I'd love to hear from you guys. What is it that you're looking to walk away with? Is it a particular, that we did not address today? And again, you can type it or you can unmute yourself and share it on the call.
Hey, Olivia, it's Shirley.
Hey, Shirley.
Hey, just looking for ways to kind of keep on track. As you know, time blocking, I mean, my calendar is beautiful, but adhering to it is my challenge. Maybe like phone alarms to remind you to do certain things. Any suggestions for things to kind of keep you on track? I tend to get interruptions and do some charity stuff.
Yes, so absolutely. And what you shared there is perfect. It is in our execution. Most of us can plan and then we have to execute. So there's a couple things. When you plan, make certain that you leave enough time to get everything done. So for instance, reminding yourself, I have to have drive time and I have to have prep time and all of those items. And then getting in the habit, because we talked about habitual thinking and we all have habitual patterns. So getting into the habit of accomplishment, of the habit of success. So Gary says, plan on paper, remind electronically. So maybe you do have an alarm that beeps, runs on your phone at 9:30 that says lead generation is over. It's time to do lead follow-up. And then you have another announcement, 90 minutes later and says, okay, that's done. It's time to go to lunch. And realistically, I'm just, treat it like you were back in the day when we all went to school, right? You were in math class. It didn't matter if you had English stuff to do. You didn't do it till the bell rang and you went to English class. So creating that system that, nope, this is what's happening now. And getting used to, what is the word? Getting used to telling your clients, this is when X will happen. And the reason we do that is, let's say if you, every time you talk to your client from the very first time you meet with them, if you're always telling them, I have appointments to find you a buyer or find you a house, whatever that looks like. So I'll be returning all calls and text messages before 2:00 every day. Be on the lookout for that. Now you can actually let some of that anxiety that we give ourselves go. You can let that go because you know when you're going to reach back out to them and they know that as well. Does that help as far as just some tips, Shirley, to actually start executing on on your schedule?
No, that's a good idea. Just doing some times and also just part of it, self-discipline. When you see something come over on something, you don't have to answer it right then and there. Just I need to put in some time in my schedule for some of those things and just have, Tuesday afternoon, 4 to 5 is X charity, and just know that don't do it until then. So that's self-discipline, but those are good ideas. Thank you.
Yes, no, my pleasure. And yet, absolutely, because that's the thing. If we don't have it on our schedule, then we feel like we're going to do it right then or we'll forget. So putting it in your calendar is huge.
And that's exactly it. You're thinking, I can answer, it's quick to do, and I might forget later.
Yeah. So it's got to be in your schedule. That's perfect. Now, so Angela, you shared, learn how to move past feelings of failure. So interesting enough, if for you guys that were MAPS clients this past, rolling into this year, Seth Campbell did a group coaching call, and I had the opportunity to listen to that, and it was amazing. And one of the things he talked about was failure. And so I'm actually going to dive into that right here. So we want to actually create a different paradigm around failure. So one gentleman that I heard, he doesn't believe in failure. He calls it feedback, right? I did X and Y happened. That feedback, if I look at it as just feedback and go, okay, now I know what does work or doesn't work. Michael Jordan says, it's not failure until you complain, right? So creating another context instead of looking at things as failure, because if you've read anybody, any great person, famous person's autobiography, their life and their success is built on top of failure. And it goes right back to what we talked about earlier. Only mediocre people are at their best all the time. And so really starting to look at creating another connotation around that failure. So Angela, that's something that you and I can continue to work on. And I would challenge you today to start, that relationship that you have to failure. What if, just feel for, what if we just call it feedback? That's what you got, was some type of feedback. So we create a different relationship to that word. All right. And then Adam, sticking to your schedule. Whatever happens, you're good as long as you're doing the activities. When you don't stick to the schedule, it's when you become anxious and stressed. Because it goes right back to, we get into that overwhelm because we know there's things that we should be doing and then we don't. And right there's that line that says hurting people hurt people. So we definitely want, following our schedule. Now, following our schedule, and I'll bring this up as well, is, making certain in our schedule, again, most of us are overachievers, right? We're kind of the A personality, where we want to get everything done and everything done perfectly and right now. And so giving up that whole thing of perfectionism, having high standards, and yet going, it's not about being perfect. It is about being purposeful. It's about moving forward. So absolutely. So I love that, Adam. Thank you for sharing that. Okay. Is there anything else that you guys came to today's call hoping that you could get, and you want to walk away and you had a question for me that you wanted to walk away from with today? All right. Well, you guys are easy. All right. Well, then, if there's nothing else, again, if you want a recording of this, if you'd like the to-do list that I shared with you, or if there's any other questions, I'll put my email address. I think most of you guys have this, and yet just in case, this is my direct email address and my phone number. So feel free to communicate with me from there. And so last opportunity, is there anything else anyone needs before we go? Okay. Well, then we'll say that the call is complete. I'm going to hang around here for a few questions just in case you have any questions. Thank you guys so much. The people that have requested anything, I'm seeing that, and I will make sure that that you get copies of this to-do list as well. Okay, I'll get those to you. All right, then you guys have an amazing week. Go boldly and make it happen.